first and foremost, Tim, tell us a little bit about the role, the details. It's a 12-week period, and what the remit is here at Salford Red Devils.
Well, football director, it's somewhat of a new role in the game, in that it covers, as I understand, and we're still working on the parameters of what my role will be, but the main role is to work from coaching through to management, make sure that there's a balance there, that they're working well together, because again, what happens off the field generally impacts what happens on the field, and vice versa obviously too sometimes. So it is important to just sort of be that, I see it as a sounding board initially for both coaching staff, administrative staff, to work to get together and make sure that we're all on the same page.
An important 12-week period for both yourself and for the club as well.
Well, it is, I think, yeah. Not only by what happens on the pitch in respect to the 10 games or so we've got left to play, but you know, how we prepare for next year, because every year only one team's going to win it. So, so the rest of us have to continue to try to improve to do that. So whether we won it this year or not, the issue is what we've also got to always plan for what's going to happen in the future. So we're looking at what's going to, over this 10 weeks, where we finish. Who knows? And we're not going to. All we're going to do is focus on each week at the moment. And then the build, and in the same time, we've got to be building for next year as well.
Middle 8 or top 8, you know, there's something to achieve for this club no matter where they finish, I suppose.
That's right, yeah. And the 7 games of, whether you're in the top 8 or the middle 8, those 7 games are going to be high intensity games, because obviously the top 8 is for a chance to play Super League, play in a grand final. But in the middle 8, you've got to stay out of relegation. So, you know, it should be some intense footy, which should keep people interested, I would hope, and certainly keep the players interested, because, you know, usually at the end of the year, if you're out of it, aren't you? There's nothing to play for, and so everything winds down. If anything, I sensed at training this week there's a lift in intensity with 3 to go, and then one way or another there's a 7 very intense games to play. You
came over for a month earlier in the year. What did you see from a coaching point of view, from a director of rugby point of view, that you can improve, add to, change, alter?
Oh, look, at the time I thought the team went well at the time, and although they'd had a tough start to the year, you know, they got a touch up here and there, but they really settled down and were playing some good footy. And I made a lot of friends here with the coaching staff and the administrative staff. And look, you know, it was my first stint with a club over here, so it's obviously vastly different to the amounts of money and the amount of staffing and so on that the Sydney clubs have, the Australian clubs have. So it was a bit of an eye-opener for that, but it's obviously also you've got to realise that the salary cap differences are huge, and therefore you know, what you can and can't do is limited. So you just can't turn around and say, well, you know, we'll go and spend $10 million on a facility, on this and on that. It's a matter of where we're going to be not only next year, but you probably need really a 5-year plan, not necessarily with the team, that's part of it, but with the club as well. Where will we be in 5 years' time?
I'm going to say it's clear the challenge is one that excites you. You really want to get, you know, roll your sleeves up and get stuck in there for Salford.
Yeah, well, the experience that I've had over the years and seeing clubs that have won premierships and clubs that have struggled and gone broke, actually, a couple of them, in many ways, you know, they've needed to be pulled out of the trouble by the league and things like that. So, you know, I've seen both sides of the coin, but you know, you want, so it does give me a level of experience to draw on. But what we want to do here is put down a plan for the short term, and also, you know, we need to win games. That's the first thing. You've got to always continue to do that, but we need to build so that we are a consistent top 8 side. And when you're a consistent top 8 side, you are some chance of winning that elusive Super League premiership that we want, or a Wembley Cup or something like that. So, but to get that, we need a lot of work on and off the field here. And I know Marwan understands that, and so do the coaching staff. And it's not going to happen overnight, but we're certainly going to try and fast track it.
Recruitment, one of the big things, I suppose, that you've been brought over to be involved in. Do you feel the club have done that well the past couple of years since Marwan's come into?
Look, I don't really want to comment. Every club's had their good buys and their poor buys, and we're no different. So I'll leave it at that. But from the point of view of recruitment, you are as good as your recruitment as a coach and as a club. It's who you put out on the park makes the difference. So, you know, whether or not you recruit, you know, overseas players or you recruit your local players, it's balancing your salary cap, getting depth of team out on the field. So if you have an injury crisis, you can still cover it to a degree. I know you can have the exceptional circumstances like Salford did this year by losing both halfbacks for a lengthy period of time, which really did rip a hole right through the club. But at the end of the day, you've got to try to manage that as best you can, have depth in your club, and build to a situation where you know that week in and week out you're a chance to win the game.
So obviously we've had a couple of signings from the NRL for Super League clubs in recent weeks. You know, you've just come over from Australia. Have you things in place, things lined up for next year for this club, do you feel?
Well, we've got a list of, there'll be a recruitment meeting this afternoon, for instance, and there will be probably every couple of days, because we need to sort out what we need. But in saying that, no use bringing in a player that's no better than what you've got. So we've got 10 weeks for the players to show their capabilities, what they can do. And before we spend money or make decisions, we've got to be sure that you know, what positions we need to fill and what type of player we need, because you've got to put together a group that play together, not just a good prop here and a good second rower there, a good halfback or a good 5'8" or a good whatever. They've got to gel. You've got to see people being able to play together. It's not always easy to foresee that, and you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you don't need players pulling against one another, you know, particularly at 6 and 7 and 9, the key positions. So you need to balance what your side looks like as well as recruit good players.
One final question on recruitment, because I know current players probably won't enjoy staff and people talking about that, but will Salford recruit a marquee player for 2016? You know, being one of the clubs that push for the ruling?
If there was a player available, Salford would. But at the end of the day, my recommendation would be you keep your powder dry until the right player is there that we need, not just a back row. You might have 2 good back rowers and you sign a marquee back rower. I mean, it would have to be a considerably good player if you've already got 2 good players. What we need is not only good players. Your marquee player has to be a player that really is a standout player on and off the field in lots of things. You know, his leadership, what culture he brings to the club, not just be a fancy ball runner who scores points. That doesn't always equate to being what you think is not to my way of thinking anyway, a marquee player. Fans might think differently sometimes, you know. If he's scoring tries and he's doing things, that's all they want. But a lot happens off the field and around the team that has that happen. So in saying that, you know, you want to be sure that the culture's right in the club as well.